Hello, and welcome to day 15 of the Ability event. I'm Joseph Jones of the Harkin Institute, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today as we have a fantastic Lunch and Learn presentation. Today's Lunch and Learn is a session about the intersections of disability and diversity with disability advocates Sandra and Tameka Spruce. I hope you'll enjoy today's conversation, and we're glad that you could join us, and hope that you can join us in the next coming days and weeks as we continue to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I hope you'll enjoy today's Lunch and Learn presentation, and we look forward to having you in future programs and events as we continue to celebrate our Ability event.
Hello and welcome.
Good afternoon, Tameka and Sandra.
Hang on just a minute as we get our moderator on camera.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to day 15 of the Embracing the Difference Globally. I'm your facilitator, James Obando. Today we have Sandra Simmons and Tameka Spruce. Like I say, I'm James Obando. I'm a brown male wearing a light pink dress shirt and have a light trim mustache. We'll have a few questions for Sandra Simmons and Tameka Spruce. At the end of the round of the questions, I'll welcome any questions from our viewers. Sandra Simmons, please introduce yourself.
So good afternoon. My name is Sandra Simmons, and I'm an African-American female. I'm wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, and I am also wearing braids that are sort of blackish, purplish, burgundy-ish. And I'm representing National Black Disabled Coalition.
Thank you. Tameka Spruce, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tameka. I am an African-American or brown-skinned woman with long black hair, have a gray shirt. You can't see it, but it says wording on it, choose happiness. And I'm wearing white headphones, and I'm a disability justice activist and filmmaker from Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you and welcome. I will have a few questions to ask, and if we're ready, I can ask the first question.
Okay, sure.
Perfect. The first question will be, how's Black disabled people participated in the disability rights movement, in particularly passing of the ADA laws?
Did you want to go, Sandra, or?
You can, go for it.
All right. African Americans have contributed a lot to the disability rights movement and the ADA. Just briefly, first, the disability rights movement. Disability rights movement started during the 60s and the 70s. They started with independent living, and there was a group of college students in Berkeley that wanted to be independent, independently, like on campus and have housing. And so that, like I said, that transpired during the 60s and it transferred into the 70s. So some of the people that were active was Brad Lomax. He was an African-American male with multiple sclerosis and used a wheelchair. And he was really active in the 504 sit-ins. And so, a unique fact, when it came to the 504 sit-ins in 1973, and a little bit, the 504 sit-in was part of the Rehabilitation Act in 1973. And so what that was really like a precursor to the ADA laws that we saw in 1990, so that federal programs can't discriminate against people with disabilities. So part of that was the 504 sit-in, and Brad Lomax was part of the Black Panthers movement. And so the Black Panthers was really involved in, during the 504 sit-ins, like they gave us food and things of that nature. A lot of people don't know that. And then as far as with the ADA, one of the congressmen, I forgot his first name, but Congressman Owens, he was instrumental in introducing the bill of the ADA and his committee. And he was an African American male himself. So a lot of times we talk about the narratives of the disability rights movement and ADA, oftentimes we think it's white people, but there's many African Americans that were active and involved.
Sounds like there were some pretty interesting times in the beginning of the ADA law, especially with the Black Panthers helping the community and trying to help out the movement to start the ADA. That is great. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, and it's always nice to reiterate that information.
Yes, because I think quite often the Black Panthers have a bad rap. You know, you think, oh, they're these militant people, and in actuality, they did some good things. They were good people, and what they stood for. Some of what they stood for, you know, you can see it in the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter. But what I was going to add is actually disability rights began in 1940 because the blind community was a forerunner. And so it actually began with the founding of the National Federation of the Blind. And during 1940, even in 1940, unfortunately, historians have not done a very good job of telling our story. It's like nothing about us without us, okay, but this doesn't apply to people of color, because the reality is we have always been part of the struggle. From, you know, being part of the very founding of NFB to just, you know, where you have instances of African American women, you know, working at schools for the blind so that their blind children will be educated. You know, they traded what they had to get what they needed. And that happens time and time again. Happened in the case of Dr. Sylvia Walker, you know, happened in the case of Ray Charles, for that matter, you know. So we have always been a part. We've been a part of the precursor. We've been leading up to and including 504 and the Americans with Disabilities Act. We've always been a part of the struggle. But for the record, it started in 1940.
Yes, thank you for the correction.
You had some great information, especially when we talked about the 504 and how 504 can introduce some information into the school systems where most of the community, it's in great need, and usually they don't really provide you with that type of information on what are some of the symptoms that we can put down in the 504 information for the community to have that information available. It's usually with the school system, if I remember well, when I was trying to get into the school program, the 504 was really limited, and it has improved a lot in the lately, but still needs some work.
A whole lot more.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think what you speaking of is the 504 plan. I know that is, dealing with students and I think transitioning from high school to, adulthood.
College or wherever
Yeah,
they're going to go.
yeah,
Transitioning, you know.
yeah. But what I'm talking about is the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. That's a little bit different. Yeah.
Definitely, that's a more concise information when it comes to helping out a lot of the community members. I'm really glad to hear that, and I remember that at one point Cesar Chavez united with the Black Panthers, and I like that you all brought that up. And Cesar Chavez was one of the greatest individuals to promote Latino communities to become part of the school systems and the community systems, especially Latinos with disabilities. Um, so that brought some memories when I hear that the Black Panthers were very active with creating being part of creation of the ADA laws in conjunction with Cesar Chavez Foundation as well. So that was that's great. Now the second question that I have is, what is the racial breakdown of the disability communities?
I know here in Michigan where I live, that when I looked at the demographics, that indigenous community was first, and then African Americans were second, and then the white community, and then it was like Latina and Asian. So and then like biracial. So that's locally, I think, well, based on my understanding, nationwide, it might be varies in different states, but I know collectively nationwide, African Americans are the highest,
Yes.
as the population.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, we are the highest. We have the largest amount of folks with disabilities for a variety of reasons, you know. Some of them are just our eating habits aren't necessarily the best. So you have diabetes and you have retinopathy of diabetes. You know, unfortunately, some of our behavior can be a bit risky, and therefore you have spinal cord injuries. It's unfortunate that we have to own that the largest population, you know, because a lot of this can be prevented. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to add, I think some of the reasons as well. I worked for part-time at the hospital system. So, my degrees in journalism, I got into, like healthcare, so that's kind of different. But I learned about public health and social determinants of health. So what that is that a person's health is determined by their social surroundings as well. So if you have, you live in a more urban area, or a high poverty area, you don't have access to things like healthy food or,
Right.
different things, like that. And so, we have no access to healthy food and, just various reasons which we saw during COVID.
Healthcare.
yeah, healthcare and stuff like that. And poverty and disability is intertwined as well. So, because like you said, with access to healthcare, access to like hospitals. I know in Detroit, like if you live in the heart of the inner city, the heart of Detroit, you might be like 20 minutes from a major hospital. There isn't really any major hospitals smack in the middle of the impoverished areas of Detroit. So when you have all those different factors, like which we saw during COVID, that what is contributing that why African Americans have, the highest rate of disability.
So because of the health issues, so therefore it gives more of an intensity to COVID to enter the community a lot easier.
Well, and plus keep in mind that the people of color, the minority community, we are, part of it is we don't necessarily have access to good health care. When we live in the impoverished areas, the police, they're quick to run down on somebody, but the firefighters and the ambulances are slow, and also we have this long kind of leeriness of the healthcare system because of what has happened in the past of us being used as guinea pigs without being informed of what was taking place, with the syphilis and with other things. And so you have a leeriness. We don't necessarily feel warm and fuzzy toward doctors the way that other groups may because of previous situations.
That that makes a lot more sense when it comes to all the information that we usually receive through government statistics, and how that makes a huge difference when it comes to actual cases or how we try to get the health information out.
And then getting to doctors and informing people, allowing people to make informed choices, because we also know that the different options, depending on, like Tameka said, who you are, you get different options are offered to you. So you don't even necessarily know about some things that are cutting edge that could really benefit you, but you don't know. Whereas somebody else, oh, we can take part in this and we can do this, and we don't have access to the same information.
Right, and that comes down to almost the same situation when it's with the disabled community.
Right.
A lot of information gets withheld. We don't get that information as quick as we like to, and that's why I always appreciate the community members that step up and produce information or changes laws or tries to change laws, and that's really helpful for not only the African American community but also to most of the disabled community as well. So that's a really great piece of information. So what are the difference of living with disability being Black and versus white? I guess that's what my next question is.
I would say we talked about a little bit of, the differences of just being a Black person. And I would say that, like a really prime example, well, two things. First, to be, when you a person with a disability, you already have to deal with things like ableism and, like discrimination based on your disability. But then when you're a Black person, what I experienced growing up, I've encountered racism as well. because I was growing up in elementary school, K through 12, I went to a predominantly white school. And so in the 90s and the early 2000s, and so with me, oftentimes, well, I was the only black girl with a disability in the whole school, first of all, in high school, in junior high. But when I was, as I was mainstream, I was in classes with my, peers. I was one of the only few black people too. So with that being said, I've encountered racism. Uh, you got delivery. I'm sorry. Racism. From my peers. A couple times I got into arguments with them, and it got so bad I had to actually go into the school to tell on one of them because he was saying racist slurs to me and in front of me and things like that. So I encountered like both ends. But then also um, a prime example is in Michigan, although they were heard about it, but it was a young girl called Grace, and she's 15 years old, and she was got a lot of outrage from the community in Michigan because she was sent to juvie for not juvenile detention for not doing her homework during COVID. And so, but it's some background story to that. But one of these, she has a disability. She has ADHD. And so, because of that, she has some behavioral issues, and she, has issues with her mother. And so, the police got involved and things like that. So, the judge said she violated her probation. But when the reason why the community and I was outraged because we look statistically among white students with disabilities, and there's statistics backing up that white students with disabilities get like treatment plans if they have behavioral issues and things like that. They don't get like put into jail or juvie and stuff like that because of their behavior 9 times out of 10. But when you look at the juvenile detention centers, a lot of it is black and brown children with disabilities. You know what I'm saying? But again, they treat it differently when it comes to schools. And when it comes to suspensions, expulsion, expelling them, uh, juvenile detention, so black children with disabilities are treated much differently than white children with disabilities. And Grace is a prime example of that. So that is one of many examples where black people with disabilities are treated differently than white people with disabilities.
I think for me, it kind of trickles down to everything. We're still quicker. It's quicker for us to we don't get chance after chance like white kids with disabilities do. Oh, you just need to go to a scared straight program, or you're just a little rambunctious versus you're really bad, you're a troublemaker. um it starts from childhood, really, but then it even filters down to, like, I'll give you a good example. So when I had I was mainstream, but when I was very young, I had teachers come into my home. I spent time with the teachers, and they taught me, blindness skills, right? So this one was teaching me how to cook, okay? And after I had progressed, she said, okay, what would you like to learn how to cook? Well, my favorite food at the time was fried chicken, mac and cheese, and collard greens. All right. So that's what I told her I wanted to learn how to fix. Now, to her credit, she tried. But let me say it like this. After that experience, I did not eat that particular meal for another 6 months. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it turned out. Okay. I don't think I would have had that experience had I had a black teacher, a black female teacher, especially growing up in the South. That because either she would have known how to fix it or she would have known somebody who did. Another example is, okay, I was always taught when I meet someone for the first time to extend my hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of my friends introduced me to somebody and I extended my hand. And the person stepped back like I had thrown cold water on them, you know? And the moral of the story is that there's more than one way to meet somebody. You know, there's your fist bump, there's your, you know,
Right.
giving somebody five, you know, all kinds of different introductory way. The teachers taught me what they knew, but those cultural norms were not there.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could only teach me what they knew, but then when I went to apply it to my culture, my neighborhood, my community, it didn't work. You know, makeup, all right? My friends, I had primarily white friends growing up. So they taught me to use the makeup that they used, blue eyeliner, okay? And it was not until I got to college, I had some good African American friends who said, um, who told you that that looks good on? That looks horrible. You look a hot mess, okay? You not only did they teach me about MAC and Fashion Fair, you know, um, that's makeup for women of color, but they taught me the questions to ask so that even if they weren't around, I could get the makeup that I needed. As opposed to, I mean, again, cultural norms. My friends taught me what they knew. Going to a store, I just picked out birthday cards, right? I didn't realize that there are birthday cards with African Americans or minorities, people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother calls me, why did you send me a picture, a birthday card with all these white people? What? You know? And what do you mean? It's, you know, I didn't know, and we had to, process that. But what it came down to, when I was a kid, there was no such thing. The standard cards were Caucasian people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know to ask for
Right.
a card that had black people. I didn't know they existed. That's where my disability kicked in. Access to information, access to the printed word. Everybody else could look around and see the cards with the black people. I couldn't. I had to be taught that, okay, you can get cards with black people. My mom's like, look, just don't send me another card. Look, you make sure you send me a card with people that look like us, okay? Or if you can't find any, send flowers, but no more white people, all right? You know, um, stuff like that.
Right. So information was pretty limited
Yes.
when it came to that. And that, on the other hand, did that make a difference the way you feel about both communities?
To tell you the truth, I still kind of feel like I don't completely belong to either one. I'm both, you know?
Yeah.
I am first and foremost, I'm Sandra, and that has to
Mm-hmm.
be good enough because I am also African American. I'm also blind. But then again, I'm also tall, well traveled, well educated, and so I had to stop trying to fit myself into those little boxes because
Mm-hmm.
without fail, some part of me was going to hang out. Yes, I am blind. So I use audio description. Okay, but then why is it that the Black movies are still described by white narrators. Okay, I have a problem with that. All right, so then I kick into the Black community. Okay, then I go to a Black theater and say, do you have audio description? They say, what's that? Okay, so now I'm out of the Black community. I mean, I go to Howard and am denied. They try to take their scholarship back from me. What? I'm not Black enough for you? So you know what? I'm Sandra, and that's that, because I, there's all kinds of boxes and compartments that I never quite fit into, because I'm all of those things, not just one.
Right. And I guess when it comes down to uh, that, most of the this disabled community goes through phases like that, and sometimes are really long phases of that, and they're treated completely different, even though their beliefs are more of I'm in line with your beliefs, I'm in line with the other community beliefs, so they're caught in between both worlds.
Yeah.
Does that affect not only mentally, but also the physical aspects of when you're trying to get a job? How does that completely affect the mentality of that individual trying to get that job, being caught in between both worlds? Because you can function on both worlds, but yet when it comes down to perhaps showing what you know how to do, do you find any limitations in that?
I would say a little bit. Um, Mostly because that, like you said, caught between two different worlds. So the way I negotiated these, the way I do these is that first I had to come to be comfortable with all of my identities, be comfortable with who I am. And I know what I bring to the table. And so, I had to create agency, over my life and about my opportunities. So, if you don't want to give me an opportunity, I'm going to find a way regardless. You see what I'm saying? So, a good example of that is that when after I graduated from high school, I wanted to get into like music and media. And so I tried to get applied to a local school in Michigan to, be part of the go to their school for media, radio and television. And when I did that, they scheduled a big meeting with all types of people and said to me, essentially, well, you can't go to this school because you have, you're in a wheelchair, and we don't think your peers are going to want to help you, like with the camera and things like that. So you can't, you can't come here. What I'm saying? And that was, in a sense, discrimination because, you're supposed to provide accommodations. And so I said, okay, and, which, if that happened to me now, I probably would have thought it, but, um, but I proved them wrong because I produced two, films, and stuff like that. And I went to school for video, broadcast journalism. I learned broadcast journalism. So at college, I did operate a camera. At my internship, I was a cameraman, a camera and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, people want to shut me out. I said, okay, all right, I'm gonna show you, and I proved them wrong. So, that's what it comes down to. When you a person with disability, and when a Black person, it can't be hard, and you don't always necessarily know for what direction people are coming. Is it ableism? Is it racism? Is it sexism? Is it a combination of all three? I don't know. But I do know that I'm on this earth for a purpose. I do know that, I got gifts and talents, and, I'm Christian, so I know that God got my back. And so I'm just going to do it regardless. If there is the
Right.
door, I will create a door myself. So that's, you just have to come to that knowledge, knowledge within yourself. But it's sad that you have to do that.
Be comfortable with who you are. Be comfortable in your knowledge. Knowing that like Tameka, I'm a believer. First and foremost, I'm a child of God. So I believe what I have, what God has for me, I'll get. Um, I'm not as patient as Tameka. I don't never mind creating a door. I'll just kick it down.
Right.
If I want it badly, if I feel like I need it badly enough, then what I've done quite often is to use my mind to come up with a way to. It's a workaround, it's an obstacle. You turn an obstacle into an opportunity, And so, like as a child, I was accused of cheating on this exam, right? She didn't think a blind person, especially a blind Black person, could do as well on this test. And she thought that my vision teacher had helped me.
Mm-hmm.
So I retook the test with her as my reader, even though I got a 92 first time. I retook the test. And so the second time it was harder, right? And I got a 96. And, basically that demonstrated that I had not cheated the first time. And then I gave her a nice big piece of my mind and told her how I felt. And got both of my A's, and and we had a conversation. And well, she no longer thought I was stupid,
I like what you both said. Tameka said creating a door, and you say kick down the door. I like both phrases because when it comes down to creating laws, and when ADA started it, that was the whole idea of opening doors and kicking down doors. And that, on the other hand, has helped a lot of us to move forward, especially when you say, Sandra, about the testing and all that. So how would it change anything if someone were to give you a full impression of the law at that time? I think that would have changed things right away. Instead of telling you were cheating on the first test, that they should have just taken that as a face value, and not ask you to take another test. So,
Unfortunately, you know what? I don't think ADA or no ADA, because the school that I went to was very 504. They were known, they were an extremely liberal school. They were known for providing accommodations. And so, to tell you the truth, I don't think 2 years would have changed this lady's mind. I think unfortunately, her opinion was that people with disabilities are somehow stupid. And it wouldn't have mattered what year, it wouldn't have
mhm,
mattered what law. You know, there are just some people who they see disability or they see race, and that's as far as it goes. They don't see the person behind it. They don't see the character. They don't see that we are more alike than we are different. It's
right.
just that they stop at that disability or at that race or both. And like she just saw my cane and saw that I read Braille, and couldn't possibly have done as well on an exam as the rest of her sighted students. And like I said, to me, I guess I making my own door, it's more fun to kick down other people's.
It's
I
more fun to
really,
kick the door.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
I get much more, it's much more fun and cathartic to just kick it down, right?
I like
That
that. I like that. So how
I
That's true.
prefer that.
I like that idea of kicking the door down. So how can the disabled community and allies, including more Black, Indigenous people of color, and disabled communities into the future of disability rights? Now that we were talking about how we can kick the doors down.
We have to be visible, because the thing about it is, the historians get, quite often, history is told by the winners, right? So we have to make sure that we are there and that we are vigilant and that we no longer allow ourselves to be second class anything, right? We are as good as Judy Human and the rest of the white um, disability, the primary, I won't even say primary, the ones that are currently lauded as being the disability, movers and shakers. The hierarchy needs to change so that, because we're Americans first, which means that our population needs to look like America. We have diversity. There are, more people with disabilities of color. So then how come we're not represented in the hierarchy of the disability rights movement? That needs to change immediately.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with her, and I'm glad to see that there are some, because I'm active in the disability justice community, and I'm glad to see there are, black and brown people with disabilities that are rising up and, speaking out, especially during this current times. You see a lot more articles, about black and disabled experiences with police and such. So, there is a growing community and movement, within the disability community. Um, but definitely, like Sandra said, we have to change the hierarchy and move it to the mainstream disability movement,
Yeah.
and not just be a secondary or underground or whatever the case may be.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
The last questions I have, it's how has the intersectionality of race and disability impacted your lives?
Uh, I kind of already highlighted that. I had to experience ableism in many different forms. I experienced, racism. I had some issues when I was younger as far as like beauty and everything, like as far as my identity of being a female, being a young woman and everything of color. And so, colorism. So I experienced like the gamut when I was, younger, and I still do. But so it's challenging to navigate, those different worlds and everything. But I think with having an anchor and having a foundation, helps a lot too, to navigate what I go through.
A great point. Great point.
Me, I think, like I was mentioning, it impacts me in the sense of, when I want audiobooks, particularly, when I want audiobooks by African American authors, I want African American narrators. When I want to see a Black movie, I want a Black describer. When I go to conventions and exhibit halls, I want to see people like me behind the booths showing the products, selling the products, and showing the demonstrations and stuff like that. Because, statistically, it's proven that, from a marketing standpoint, people are more likely to buy things and trust things if people who look like them are marketing them, right?
Right.
So we have in the blind community, we have we make purchases, we purchase assistive technology like everyone else. Why are there very few blind vendors, Black vendors who are blind? Years ago, we got the idea, we started saying, okay, when you guys come to our convention, we want blind and visually people who are blind and visually impaired to present. We no longer want to see a bunch of sighted people. Okay, they understood that paradigm shift, and now it's customary, it's about 60-40 in favor of the people who are blind and visually impaired. Okay, then why can't we do the same thing? Okay, if we're supposed to be reflecting we're a microcosm of society, then why is that not reflected in our infrastructure, in our teachers of the blind and visually impaired, our TVIs, in our exhibitors, our vendors, um, our narrators, our audio describers, our like when we have tandem biking or skiing or, those activities, why are, why isn't a concerted effort made to recruit folks of color that are going to then represent the diversity of their population base?
Excellent, excellent observations and points. I think that you both made some great statements, and we're going to be taking some questions from the viewers. And I think some of the questions you both already answered, especially Sandra in the last statement you made, including more African Americans into the community. One of the questions is, it's a comment and a question. And it reads this way: you have both made so many excellent points. One area that I know we need to do better is in hiring teachers of color. How can we recruit more people of color with disabilities to become teachers? This was something both of you referenced with teachers in your life. And that's that's the first question that we have from our viewers.
So one thing to be done is, like, I know when it comes to teaching blind and visually impaired children, TVI, what you could do is to start, because I think of all the TVI programs in the country, only one is at a historically Black university. So if you ramp up those programs at those HBCUs, okay, if you get out in the community, and just like you have job fairs where you promote different careers, okay, if we raise awareness in the community, and change how our community views people with disabilities, I think that might help things.
Perfect. The next, Tameka, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, I think, like, I just want, echo what Sandra said. Yeah, definitely partner with HBCUs and even universities, to hire or go to the college job fairs and to, HBCUs and things like that to incorporate more people, Black teachers, yes.
Yeah, great information. Another question that we have for one of our viewers is, and it reads like this: if you had an opportunity to talk to your younger self at age 5, what will you share about being a young girl with a disability, finding her voice?
I would say, I would tell myself now, as I'm 35, so as a 35-year-old woman, I would say to my younger self that you're going to be okay, as who you are. You don't have to change. You don't have to be like the next person, able, you don't have to, be able-bodied to be successful. You don't have to be, white necessary to be successful, or one with Isha had, when I was younger, colorism, so you have to be light-skinned, to be successful. You can just, you'll be okay as you are.
Great.
I would say it's okay to be you, it's okay to be you. Stop trying to measure up to using everyone else's measuring stick, because you'll always come up short.
Very true. Very true. And that same belief goes for a lot of us. You know, if we try to sell ourselves short.
Get
Another
off that
question,
get off that treadmill of the world. Get off the world's treadmill and create your own, you know?
right?
You do be you.
Be you, and the doors are there. You either open them
Kick them down.
or you can kick them down, like Sandra said. I like that statement. I like it a lot. So another question that I have from one of our viewers is that, and it reads like this. Um, when you are learning how to be independent, how important it is to have an instructor who is well educated in blindness, or is it more important that the instructor is of the same race educated?
I think it depends on your stage and development. And I'll give you an example of why. Okay. When I was learning how to cook, I needed a black person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll make this story short. When I was a kid learning how to use a cane, I was afraid to cross the street. And this one day, my teacher insisted that I cross the street. And for whatever, I thought she was going to let me get run over. So I was really scared. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. So we stood on this corner for like 3 hours. And finally, she had to take me home. And I get home and, you know, I refused to take mobility to use my cross streets alone for 4 years after that. And what it came down to was I needed a blind person, a person who was blind that had a cane, to show me that they could cross the street successfully without getting run over. Because the people who were trying to teach me how to do it, including my mom, were sighted. And what I kept thinking was, let somebody, you close your eyes, let somebody give you a stick and tell you to cross the street, and let's see how successful you are. And when I said that, that stopped the whole argument, right? The whole, I mean, they were screaming, you have to do this, you have, when I screamed that out, it brought everything to a halt, okay? And I mean, it got silent. You could have heard a pin drop. There was no response. There was nothing they could say to me because what I had said was absolutely true. And since neither of one, they were not able to find me a competent blind person who could simply have taken my hand and said, look, we're going to cross this street together. I'm using my cane and you can use yours. Since they could not counter what I said. They allow that fear and that anxiety and that whatever you call it manifested itself for 4 years. And those were my prime years when I could have been very good at it. And as a result, I am not nearly as good a traveler as I would have been had I had those 4 years of practice.
Right. Excellent information. It is hard to combine both of the experiences and the ability to have somebody else teach you that when you're processing it yourself in your own way. And that leads me to another question that unless Tameka has something else to add to that previous question.
That's good.
All right, so great. One of the questions that I have, and we were talking about how can individuals within the white community and the African American community find themselves intertwined with discrimination. So it's going to be one of those questions. So the question reads, as a white male with CP, I am wondering if you also experience oppression and discrimination from white disabled people equally as from non-disabled white people.
I would say, and sometimes yes. I did have a lot of good white friends who was disabled because, like, you know, at my school, like I said, it was predominantly white, and we did have a POI class. So I did meet a lot of great, you know, white disabled people, you know, who were accepting. The only issue, like growing up with some of the kids, was like dealing with their parents, maybe racist. So you know, that is you know, a little bit of what I encountered. But as an adult, um, you know, yeah, to some degree, you know, white disabled people, you know, are also, you know, they're white. So some of them, put like that. But some of them, of course, so some of them still hold that white supremacist viewpoint that sometimes, you know, may come from their family, might come from what they see, you know, in the media or whatever the case may be. They've been socialized to be racist. So, so yeah, definitely have encountered, you know, some white people, you know, with disabilities don't want to hear about Black people experiences or deaf tone or, you know, so yeah, it's the
Yeah.
same.
I agree.
Great, great. Thank you for answering those questions. We really appreciate all the information and the insights that we received today. I have no more questions. I would like to thank both of you for taking the time to appear live with us here today. We really appreciate your time. And I think that's pretty much all we have for today. Please join us tomorrow for uh, another event at 7:30 in the morning. Thank you. Thank both of you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, keep joining us tomorrow. Like I said, tomorrow is going to be day 16. It'll start at 7:30. We'll hear from some of our K9 panel speakers. Katie Johnson, Dr. Amy Nauf, Jackson Mai, Xian Yu, and Yung Yuan about experiences in China. So please join us tomorrow. And I'll leave you with this. You both are great. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and I learned a lot. Thank you.
Good. Glad to help out.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great day.
And
You
this
too.
and this is Dr. Knopf. I just want to tell the audience it's 7:30 tomorrow evening, not in the morning. So make sure you join with us tomorrow afternoon, 7:30 p.m. Thank you. You all did a wonderful job. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.